everyone. It's 10:25. It is 10:25, and a lot of us are getting very anxious to get back to normal. I think for some of us, we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel as we are finding out that some restrictions are loosening up, as we're hearing news about what can reopen and to what extent. And so for us, we're like, oh, normal's finally coming back. But before you get there, or before you think about it too much, I want to invite you to pause for a second and think about this. What has happened in your life over the past few months? Because oftentimes I think we don't pause to consider what's going on presently or what has happened, and we just rush on into the next thing. And I know a lot of us are eager to rush into what's next. We're eager to rush into normal. But there's certain things that have happened over the past several weeks. For instance, Josephine, show them what's happened to you over the past few weeks. We're missing 2 teeth. 2 teeth! Thanks, sweet cheeks. You can go play. There's things that have happened. For my daughter, it's been a huge deal losing 2 teeth. But I want you to pause and think, what have you lost over the past several weeks? Have you lost some things that you're really eager to get back? Maybe your independence and your freedom. Have you lost some things that you hope to leave behind, similar to baby teeth? You lost maybe a sense of control that you know you don't want to get back because you're discovering what it means to trust God. Have you lost your, anxiousness? What have you lost? Oftentimes in the Old Testament, what we see is that when God's people went through a particular season and he brought them to a point, before he moved them into what was next, he had them set up a memorial of some sort to remind themselves of God's faithfulness and what he did. There's a story in the Gospel of Mark. It's also in the Gospel of Matthew, but I want to read a portion of it to you. It's from Mark chapter 5. Mark 5, that begins with the story of the demon-possessed man. This is one of my favorite stories. And the reason why is to see the way that Jesus interacts with somebody and what he tells him to do with a sense of what he's lost. So this is Mark 5, verse 14 to 20. To give you a little bit of precursor before we get into it, because there's a lot of story that happens, Jesus and the disciples go on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and there's a man who's possessed. And Jesus casts that demon, or legions of demons, casts them into some pigs. And when he casts them into some pigs, the pigs hurl themselves off a cliff, they drown, the herdsmen go into the town, tell everyone what's happening. So that's what's happened. A demon has been cast out of this man, and he's restored. This is where our story picks up. Verse 14. The herdsmen fled, and told it in the city and in the country. And the people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it described it to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs. And they began to beg Jesus to depart from the region. As he was getting in the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. And notice this in verse 19. And he did not permit him, but said to him, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and how he has had mercy on you. Verse 20, and he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And everyone marveled. And everyone marveled. I think it's so interesting that in this story, Jesus doesn't let the man follow him. I mean, he's eager. He wants to be there. But Jesus says, no, I have given you a story that needs to be told. And this story isn't one you're not connected with. I have given you your own story. And I want you to share that. So think. What's happened to you over the past few months? What's happened to you over the past several weeks? What's your story? And who can you share that with? How can you have ears that are open to story? The end of this week, on Friday, you're going to have an opportunity to begin to hear a series of stories for these segments for 1025. On one day a week, we're going to adapt it so that you get to hear someone else share their story. We're going to call it Share Your Story. And the meaning behind it is not only for one person that you may or may not recognize to share a story with you from their life and how God's been at work in their life, but for you to begin to think, what's my story? What's God's story? And how he's at work in my life? Because you, just like this demon-possessed man, you've lost something. You've lost your old identity, and Jesus has given you something new. And then the new that he's given you, he wants you to go and share that with others. So be on the lookout. It's going to come this Friday as we begin to listen and reflect on our stories.